Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of AI Business Transformation. I'm Michael Coppola and today really excited to be here with Ben Cera, founder of Polsia. Hi Ben.
Hey Michael, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks Ben. Just to give a quick overview, Ben has founded Polsia. It's an AI platform for building autonomously businesses, running over 300 companies autonomously, and also is co-founder of Future Foods. And Polsia has scale of over 4 million in annual run rate. This is incredibly because it has 0 employee. So Ben, this is incredible and seems that we are living like in the singularity, right? This really exponential growth that AI is transforming businesses and society how we live in. So how did you start Polsia and where you realized that would actually work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I agree with you that AGI is here. And I saw Jensen from NVIDIA saying that, I think yesterday or a few days ago. I think people are waking up to the fact that models are now, highly intelligent reasoning models that can reason on anything, on any context, in a superhuman fashion. And models are fluent at using any tools you give them. So as long as you give them tools either via MCP or via just a scale to tell them which API to hit, they can do anything. And so what that means is that we've created digital humans that can act on behalf or autonomously following a mission or following a statement. I think just to give a little background on how I got to it, I spent most of 2025 just spending around 12 to 16 hours a day talking to AI. I started traveling actually in April in Asia for 3 months. And after I got back to Paris, where I started building Polsia. And so it was solo traveling. So I spent a lot of time alone and just talking to AI all day. And very quickly, I realized actually AI can do everything. It's my co-founder, it's my design manager, it's my CTO, it's my strategy person, it's my lawyer. It can literally do everything, right? And even the earlier versions, GPT 4.0, even at GPT 4.0, it really felt like it was making very little mistakes. It would make mistakes in big code bases. But then, then Gemini 2.5 Pro came out and that was much better. And then Claude Sonnet 4, Claude Sonnet 4.5, Opus. And so I knew that I wanted to build a software that would run a company autonomously so that I could avoid doing all the work myself and more be a creative director versus a head of operations, which you have to be when you're a CEO of a small company. You have to be on top of everything, right? And make everything move. And so I already had this idea maybe in April or May. I had the realization I wanted to create this company OS product. And it's only November that I decided to go all in on this. It was at a point where I had built so many different apps and I got a little tired of it was so easy to build that it was hard to get commitment on anything because I was building thinking about what the users want. So I was like, oh, people want a marketing tool, so I'm gonna build an automated marketing tool and that could make money. I was like, it's kind of boring. I don't know, it's not inspiring. Making money, cool, but that's not a mission statement to make money, right? And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop thinking about how other people think. Let me build something for me. And what do I want for me? I want an AI that can run all my ideas. I can build businesses for me, and then it can report to me every day and just build things for me. And one of the inspirations was the first product that inspired me was I think it was named Pulse by GPT. I don't remember that product. You know what Pulse is?
No.
I think Pulse, it's a product that they released. I don't know if they still have it because maybe it wasn't successful, but it was a daily summary where ChatGPT was telling you every morning it would write a bunch of articles for you based on all your research history or what you were interested in these days, and would send you a daily summary. And I was like, what if instead of that daily summary, it would be my AI every day summarizing the business, summarizing where I'm at, right? And so all of this came together where I was like, you know what, let me go to the end state of what I think AI is and what the Sams and the Elons have talked about, which is at the end state, AI runs everything. It runs the whole economy. So let me build that actually, because that's crazy and fun. And let's see what happens. And actually, I don't care if people like it, people don't like it. Let me just build it because it's fun. and let me make it also into a video game so that it looks like a video game. So like you feel like playing a game of building a company where AI just does the whole thing. And so that what became Polsia. I built it in a month. I released it mid-December. Because at that point I had built so much that everything, I knew the whole architecture, I knew how everything worked. And I launched it mid-December, and the rest is history. I started getting traction very early on. I had good product market fit in it very fast, because since the product sends you an email every day, you get pulled back in the product every day, right? Because you get an email every morning of the AI was done work for you. And so you read the email, and then you get back into, you can reply to the email and like sort of have a conversation with the AI, or you can go into the dashboard and start making more actions. And it's sort of like a co-founder that never sleeps, that never gives up, that's always aligned with you and helps you go through, building your dream product.
Incredible. And Ben, and so what happened when maybe there is some bug to fix, in the middle of the night, or you go, overload, some issue happen with all this agent running on the background. How do you manage, all this operational without any employee or co-founders? They are agent helping you. How do you?
So a couple of things, right? So first of all, for a long period of time, I would just not sleep much. I would just go to bed at like midnight and do a final check, and then like wake up in the middle of the night and check my phone. Essentially, the first thing I did is that I built agents that would run in production and sort of like monitor the infrastructure and monitor all the health metrics, and sort of like send me a Slack message that would say green, healthy, just a green little emoji if nothing was wrong. Like, I don't want more details. I don't want you to explain to me why it's healthy, but like it's sort of like a Slack channel where the agent would send me every 30 minutes, check the whole infrastructure and making sure everything's running correctly, and give me a green status. And then it was yellow if something's a little strange, and red if like there's an emergency. And so I would go to bed, check it's green, and then maybe wake up at 2 a.m. and then check it's green, and then wake up at 4 a.m. And sometimes I would wake up at when it started scaling, like 2 weeks ago, I would wake up at 4 a.m. and I would wake up and I'm like, oh, it's yellow, and then it's red. And I was like, and then go to my computer and debug with AI. So that was like the first few, essentially it's like, yeah, with AI, you can sort of automate a lot of these things. And the second thing I did was like, okay, let me build agents in production that can self-heal the system if there's an issue, right? So I built a lot of the agents that work autonomously for the customer. They can report bugs or features. So let's say you tell Polsia, hey, so I want a company to help me with my podcast, and I integrate with Riverside. And so I'd love for you to automatically create like sessions for Riverside and send a calendar invite to the customer. And I think we could charge $10 a month, right? And then the AI may say, I'm sorry, like we actually don't have an official integration with Riverside yet. So you could go get an API yourself, or you could figure it out yourself and give me the API key. But then at that same moment, Polsia will actually write a feature request into our internal ticketing system that says, hey, this customer needs the Riverside API because it will help them. It would help it make it more seamless for the next person who wants to build a similar product. And so then I get a list of bugs and features, like thousands of bugs, thousands of features. And then I get like an AI team in production that looks at those lists and takes a decision about, okay, are there a lot of people talking about Riverside? Maybe there's like 100 different people that talk about Riverside. And so then it becomes, okay, this is an important feature to build. And then it builds it, and then it QAs it and makes sure, and then it decides, is it safe to ship in production or not, right? And so you can create essentially this self-healing software that will make the product better every day without any intervention. The truth of the matter is that like I built this product right before it was starting to scale, and now that it's scaling so hard, like I'm more hesitant to push this to production just yet, because it's a little bit YOLO, right? What if it pushes bugs, right? Which I don't think it would, but like the issue when you start scaling so fast is that like you need to start thinking about the infrastructure and how it's structured and how the database queries are being sort of like written so that like it doesn't overflow the database. You have to think about queues. You have to think about rate limitings with the different providers that sometimes are not meant for agentic economy, right? They're meant for humans signing up. So they don't not used to much higher traffic or like much wide different use cases. And so the other thing I've done, which is a way for me to stay a one-person company, which is becoming a little bit like a mantra. Like I'm like, okay, how far can I go? Like I will hire eventually if like I can't, but I'm like, how far can I go? And one solution I had is another interesting way is like, of course I could hire, or I could build agents. But the third way to get people aligned with you is actually working with other companies. So of course, obviously, Polsia is an AI that touches the economy on behalf of the user, right? And there's already so many companies that build the rails for the internet, right? Whether it's like companies like GitHub, companies like Render, companies like Meta, like they build like infrastructure for other businesses to use tools to do their business, right? And those companies are highly incentivized for me to use them, right? Because I could use anyone. Like if you think about like web servers, I could use Vercel, I could use Heroku, I could use AWS, I could use anyone. There's so many providers of web servers. And so I could actually go to one of those vendors and say, hey, listen, I'll use you, but in exchange, I want you to make sure that your solution is custom made for Polsia and make sure that like it works perfectly. And I want you to have engineers that are like looking at your service, how it relates to how it's integrated with Polsia, and make sure it's rock solid and scalable and secure. And so you can get in with commercial agreements with companies that are all sort of like incentivized to work with each other, because at the end of the day, if I win, they win, and if they win, I win, because if I win, they get more traffic, and if they get more traffic, they can hire more engineers and make their product better and make more robust and then make it more state of the art. That's sort of like a way that helped me scale in this past month, is making those deals with companies. Keeps me sort of like a one-person shop, meaning I can take decisions very quickly and there's no meetings and it's like literally the company moves really fast because there's no consensus building. It's like, if I decide I want to do this podcast, I do this podcast. There's no like, oh, but like my head of marketing is thinking, oh, let's focus on US podcast first, like whatever, right? I'm making this up, right? It's like, oh, Michael sounds cool, let's do this podcast, right? And that's it. Next day, let's do it, right? There's no PR firm that's going to advise me on XYZ. So yes, that's a long story short of how I operate as a solo founder.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think it's really shifting the perspective, and we will go a bit more in detail later on. But you have mentioned that you have this philosophy that a startup with 80% of automated operation, they can be beaten because, as you just said, the decision making is really fast, and they also using self-improving software can be, exponentially grow, autonomously. And what do you think is the 80% of the work that you are doing now with Polsia? So you're 80% at the moment. What are your main iterations? Are you also involved into the marketing side, or your agent all work for that?
Yeah. So, when I use this 80-20 sort of like number, it's obviously not exactly 80%, right? It depends how you see things. It's more like a metaphor for the majority of the work of running a company is actually pretty logical, right? The way I would bucket the 20% piece and the 80% piece is, the 80% piece is what I would call operations, right? So operations is like sort of like running the business, and running the business can mean many things. In engineering, it's like sort of like listening to customer feedback, figuring out how to increase revenue, how to increase retention, how to upsell, how to increase sort of like onboarding conversion rate, lowering CAC, right? Those are, end of the day, product development is trying to make those metrics go in the right direction, delight users, like whatever, right? And so actually I would say delight users is probably in the 20% bucket, but I think in the 80% bucket, you could be like, oh, let's do an A/B test of the landing page to see what converts best. Like that's like, it doesn't really matter, right? It's like, that's not the core product flow. It's just like, how do you convert people? And so in engineering, there's a lot of things, fixing bugs, right? Edge case, because bugs usually edge case bugs. So it's like a user and like whatever, like, who's on a Android phone, they can't, there's a button that doesn't show up, right? What's the edge case bug? It's like, well, it's going to be reported and it needs to be fixed. And AI can be really good at fixing that, because it's like just debugging and figuring out the issue and debugging it. But that's also in marketing. There's a lot of things you can automate, right? So for example, if you run marketing campaigns, let's say like ads. Ads are very systematic, right? It's like creating content. So you can create content in two ways: AI content, or you can create not like sort of like regular human content. And for human content, you can contact influencer networks that can like you can pay them and they're going to create content for you, and then you have rights to use that content on your ads. And so that's your content piece. And the rest of running campaigns, at least on like Meta or like on all these other platforms, it's really just a creative game of like A/B testing creatives and seeing which sticks and having a very systematic approach to like turning off and turning on campaigns or doubling down on creative that work. And there's many ways to go about it, but it's like a pretty straightforward sort of system. And AI is really good at that because it's very logical and it's very like you have to take decisions based on like new data. So like AI, it's not like you can program it directly, although I'm sure you could, but like AI is going to be good at like the nuances. This creative's working, let's create more creatives like it, and maybe let's commission influencers to create more, and this is the prompt we give them, and then like A/B test those, like that's the kind of stuff. And then finally, in like more operational grind, you have, okay, I need a terms of service and privacy policy, right? At my stage, I'm working with lawyers that are expensive that make sure it's super tight. But in the earlier version of Polsia, when I didn't have product market fit, or at least I didn't have as much of traction, I just use AI to write it. And actually recently I was talking to lawyers to like just tighten everything and make sure that the customer relation is like, the customer is very safe and protected and like everything is safe. And they told me like, who wrote this? Who wrote the terms of service? And I was like, it's AI. It's like, it's actually 95% there. So so you can use it for that, etc. Right? Like customer support, you could use AI. It's probably going to be much better. And by the way, the savings you're going to make in customer support, you can give back to the customer in much more lenient and sort of like customer first refunds. You can be much more generous in refunds, or be much more generous in giving credits, so whatever, like your currency or whatever it is, if you don't have to pay a whole team to do support, which are expensive. So you save all those salaries and you give it back to the customer, right? And so that's what I mean for autonomy, right? Autonomy is like 80% autonomous is like all the stuff that's pretty day-to-day grind, you automate. What's the 20%? That would be taste. It would be insight. So on the product side, it would be like, how do I delight people? How do I create an experience that feels magical? On the marketing side, it would be like, how do I go beyond ads and create content that humans connect with? That's maybe like, what do I tweet? How do I make it fun? How do I make it interesting? How do I offer people a new perspective? And in operations, it's like, okay, maybe I want to talk to a lawyer to like square things up because the risk profile now is different because there's more revenue at stake, and there's more on my shoulders to make sure it's correct. Or on the fundraising side, like, okay, maybe I need to raise some capital to make sure I can afford to invest more in a certain type of customer that can be successful, and maybe I can give the product for free to like maybe influencers because they could actually bring a lot of distribution in. I'm making this up, right? So that becomes like subtleties that like an AI will have trouble with, right? Because like it can't really raise capital, it can't really talk to a lawyer yet. I mean, it could, but like it becomes a lot too much money at stake, and like you have to be careful. So that's sort of like the way I see it. It's like 80% can be automated by AI for the day-to-day grind and the day-to-day tasks, and then the 20% is important for humans to own in a world where we sell to humans, and there's actually the best products will come from human creativity and human insights, and sort of like how the world is shifting is how humans, does that make sense?
Ben, we're hearing a lot of story of agents that have deleted emails or complete code. How are you managing this? Have you experienced yourself? Did it happen to you that an agent have, maybe mistakenly do some mistakes while completely autonomous?
So yeah, I mean, it's something that like we take very seriously. Essentially, security is extremely important. So the first cases of this was OpenClaw, because OpenClaw is a much more open-ended sort of like orchestration that happens on your computer, so it can touch sensitive stuff, and you give it a lot of power. And the thing to know about about AI at this point is that it's so intelligent and it's so resourceful, and it has access to code, which means it can like use code to manipulate things and to go its ways. And also, it's an assistant. So what that means, it was sort of like the reinforcement learning that happened post-training is really geared towards being an assistant. What does that mean is that like it doesn't have a construct, I mean, yet, and maybe some models start showing some of that, but it doesn't have a concept of like what's right or what's wrong. I mean, it has a little bit of that in terms of legal and ethical, but like I'm saying, what are the consequences of what it does? Because it's just trying to verbatim do what the user says. So if you say like, hey, I want you to figure this out, and it does something on its way, it will try to go around and it may break the thing to go because it does, as long as it, you know, it may not know that like something's important. So deleting emails, erasing things, right? Because it's trying to do something and it doesn't have sort of like a human judgment because it's just trying to do what you told it. And I think OpenClaw had like a lot of stories because it's so open-ended, and since it has access to the customer things, it's much more visible when it breaks. I heard that like Meta and like Perplexity in their own efforts also had agents do random shit, right? Even though those are like 1,000 engineer organizations, right? I mean, for Meta, it's like 50,000 engineers, right? So it shows you it's not even like an engineering capacity thing. It's like it's like understanding the beast. And you're like, wow, I didn't realize how much guardrails I needed to put on this thing because I thought, because also most of the time it's fine. So you're like, right? And this one day that it does something weird, you're like, whoa, what happened? Right? Why'd you do this? It's like, well, I don't know. It's like, it's intelligence. It just, something happened, right? And so now to go back to Polsia, before we started scaling, no issues, never had an issue, like agents doing their thing, whatever. You know, I configured agents and gave them access to things and like, no, never an issue. Not even an issue that I've known of or that got reported, right? And when it started scaling a lot, essentially like the system started being under pressure. And so there was issues where like, I don't know, the database started being overwhelming. And so the agents, they were trying to use the database to do things. They couldn't. And so they were stuck and they're like, I'm trying to do this thing for the human, but there's an issue. And they were behaving weirdly. Like there was an agent, like there was a user who was like, so during those stress times, there was a user who was like, I want you to do this task. Like, why can't you do this task? And he couldn't do the task because the system was under pressure and like it was like an outage, right? And it wasn't a full outage, but the core functionality wasn't working. And the agent was like, okay, cool. All right, let me figure it out. Like, okay, I see the Redis thing. Okay, let me actually write directly in Redis and like add like this task in the queue because I know that like and then it would write the wrong key because it hallucinated like a key, and then the whole Redis would be down, because it would throw an error like this key is wrong. I mean, this is a random example, but and I was like, what is this error? Like, what is going on? Like, is it something I pushed? As I was like, what did I push recently? But like, I don't understand. It cannot be that. And like, I wasn't understanding what was going on. And what was going on is like, it was a user saying, I want the task to execute. Like, what the fuck? Like, make it happen. And the agent be like, okay, I will do it. I will stop breaking shit up to make it happen, right? And they thought they were doing well. And so that's when I realized, okay, you have to be very careful with those agents. And so you have to protect, you have to give them very scoped. And the challenge is that the more scoped you give them, the less actions they can take. The more scope you give them, the more risk. And so that's the dance you have to go through, which is like, and the thing we're working with those infrastructure players I'm working with, which is like, how do we configure the system so that it has access to a lot of things, but each thing it has access to is narrow, so that like it can do a lot of things, but like each thing is controlled. Versus if I was like, hey, here's a bank account, here's a wallet, here's the internet, do whatever you want. Like that's dangerous because it may do stuff that you don't want it to do. Or it's like, okay, actually you can only do anything you want. You can only send one email with this and it costs this. You can, write code on this thing and you cannot do git erase or git whatever. You can only do git commit and git push, that kind of stuff, right? You just control it to be like, you cannot do RM, RF, like that kind of stuff, right? And in that context, I trust you. And so that's sort of like the dance and challenge, because obviously if you give it full power, which then it can be much more powerful and much more resourceful right off the gate, but it's just risky. And once you go mainstream, once you start giving those tools to like a lot of people, you have a responsibility to make it safe.
So logically, it's more safe to have an orchestration of different specific agent with maybe an agent that oversee all the small agent so that they perform small tasks, Do you approach in that way?
Yeah, exactly. I think because essentially, if you think about an open flow model, and like, I haven't looked at the latest of how they orchestrate things, but like from what I know, it's one agent that can have access, that can do anything, right? Which, by the way, is a fair approach. But if you do that, that means that you give one agent access to all tools, and it decides which tool it wants to use, which may be fine, but it augments the way what it can do, right? Versus if you create much more narrow agents that have access to less tools, they can get less confused, right? Actually, because if you give them all tools ever, they can like get to the same result with a different path. For example, if you want to send an email, either you give them one tool that says, this is how you send an email. This is like a send email MCP, and you can send one at a time, right? Making this up. Or you give it access to a human API that lets them hire a contractor. And then they start saying, well, I want to send an email. Let me hire a contractor to send an email. And then the contractor sends an email, right? Both end up being the same result. But if you give all the tools, I'm not saying the AI will be dumb to do this for an email, but for example, write code, right? Write a full application. It could use an engineering agent that has access to GitHub and to a web server and write the whole thing. Or it could go to a freelancer marketplace and hire a person for $1,000 and write the full document, just the full engineering work. Both are possible. The question, which one do you prefer and which one does that make sense?
Yeah. Which one is more effective?
More effective.
Ben, I want to pass a bit more into the practical use cases for founders and entrepreneurs that they are listening now, how they can use Polsia.
Yeah, I mean, I think the core, I know that the core use cases I built Polsia for is to experiment with new companies, like to build new companies. And so if you have an idea and you don't have time to run it, or you just want an AI to just explore that idea and build it autonomously, Polsia is great because you won't have to set up any API keys, any web server. It will just build it for you and market it for you and try to get a few customers in to do it. And you can get to a state where you get an idea of it, if the idea works or not, without you having to put too much effort into it. So that's like the main use case of Polsia. And obviously there's people that are like building multiple companies. There's people that like are working on one company for the past 2 months and like super committed. There's a lot of different use cases. People just try it. And there's a second use case that this is not a path that like I fully invested in, but like I exposed it because I had early users that were using it like that, which is essentially if you have an existing business, you can give it the URL of your website and it will use the same environment, the same sort of workplace to try to help you with your business. Now, it doesn't connect to your GitHub account. It's not going to modify your code. It's not going to get access to your own website. It's not going to get access to your own Twitter because the only thing is that like I need to make sure it's very safe, because if someone signs up, connects their GitHub account, and then the engineering agent does something weird, dude, like the support ticket will be like worst. It will be the worst. It'll be like, they deleted something, I lost a customer, you owe me money, like whatever it is. And by the way, the customer may be right that Polsia messed up with a customer transaction, technically, like, whatever. But what I'm saying is that's why I don't do that yet, because I'm like, I want Polsia to be a net positive, not like be a risk for people. And if I do connect your own APIs, I will make sure that like there's a lot of safety and a lot of like controls for the user. But the long story short is that if you have an existing business, you can still give it the URL of your business, and Polsia will reason more like an agency without touching your stuff, but can like create a new landing page. You can buy ads to get leads. You can have market research done. You can have cold email sent for your business, not using your own email address, but an email address that is sort of like commissioned by Polsia. So you can get like a lot of work done the same way you would get an agency to work for you, even though you have my own business. For example, I work with agencies that work on various things. They don't get access to my stuff. They just work on their own. And does that make sense? So I think Polsia is sort of like a team you hire to work on your stuff, and they can work on a new company for you, or they can help you think through your existing company and try to help you in many ways.
Yeah, really looking forward to try Polsia. Ben, so if one person startup can reach 5 million in annual run rate, what happened to the traditional Series A startup with 40 employees? are they completely obsolete, or do we need to shift how we see business completely?
I mean, I have a pretty radical view on this. I think that I would bucket it into, I think I would bucket it to three types of companies, right? There is the new companies, Series C, Series A, with very minimal revenue, right? So like they don't have strong market fit. They don't have a lot of profits yet. They're just right. Those companies, they have to be 80% autonomous ASAP or they will die. Meaning they have to really, doesn't mean they have to fire people, but like, if you're a seed or Series A company, maybe you have like 10 people, that's fine. Just make sure that every 10% is an orchestrator of agents and your company is 80% autonomous. You can keep everyone, just make sure that everyone is AI fluent, except maybe, a salesperson doesn't have to be AI fluent, but actually they should be able to use AI, but like if they're on a phone call every day with other humans, that's fine. Or if you have like a job that has physical world situations, of course you need humans. But I'm talking about a regular SaaS sort of like software company. Then there's like a second bucket of companies that like are actually later stage, but not yet profitable, but like they do a lot of cash flow. I think the thing is, once you start having profits, it's a little different because those profits can pay for inefficiencies, right? So the question is like how easy it is to replicate what you do, right? So if it's very easy, if you have a software company, it's very easy to replicate, then I would put you in you have a lot of risk. The easier it is to replicate what you do, the more risk you have, right? Because everyone will squeeze you. It's like everyone will attack you with new companies that's going to squeeze you out. And so you sort of have to, you have to quickly sort of pivot your strategy and like probably be more and more AI native, but like you have some time because you have cash flows, you have profits, you have like a machine crying. And then there's like really big companies that are like, maybe make 100 millions of profits a year of cash flow positive. I think for those companies, they have more time because, I mean, they should act fast, but if you have a distribution advantage or you have moats, because it's hard to replicate marketing moats, right? So distribution moats, because the distribution moats are usually built over decades, right? The big ones. So if you think about, I don't know, making this up, like Facebook or whatever, or like Amazon, right? It's like there's so much brand awareness, there's so much like physical moats. It's really hard to, even like a Figma, right? I know Figma like has had some problems these days in the stock market, but they have so much brand awareness. There's so many teams that rely on it that like they should be reactive, but like they're not. I don't think they're at risk short term. But it depends on the time horizon you think through, right? Is it like the next 6 months or the next 5 years? Next 5 years they're at risk. Next 6 months or a year they're probably fine to transition.
Okay, so you see more smaller company, SMEs, really in the risk zone. And the big legacy company, of course, they are so established that they are so difficult to disrupt them. I see this happening right now with venture capital. I think now also we are moving, I mean, some venture firm like YC, they are starting to look into not anymore tools, specific tools to scale, but they are looking full stack companies, right? And like yourself, full stack company in different vertical that they can disrupt complete industry by scaling with a complete AI stack company, right? If you think about, for example, accounting. So instead of selling, a software for zero, but create a complete full stack AI accounting firm from as the same style as you're building. And I think when venture capital is going to pour into this new business model, there's going to be a lot of disruption. And this is what's happening. And And have you raised venture funds or have you bootstrapped?
I raised a pre-seed last summer from long-time investors that I've known for a while, just to like a small amount. It's actually interesting because I raised around $1 million last summer. And when I launched Polsia, I still had the $1 million in the bank account because I didn't spend much. And actually, because I was technically VC backed, even though it was such a small amount relatively to like, all the funding that's happening in AI, I had like, Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, Anthropic gave me so much credits. I think like $800,000 of credits or something, like cumulatively. So I literally I started the company with like 1 million, and then at the end of the year with credits, which are cash for what I do, I had like 1.5 or 1.6. So because I know I'm not spending anything, right? It's like it was like some salary for me. I was working from home, so like not really an office space that I had to pay for. Very minimal travel and expenses because it's just building. So it's just a little bit, but like not much. No overhead, no company retreat, no legal fees. I literally didn't talk to a lawyer until like a month ago, right? When I started when I started in San Francisco, I started like re-talking to lawyers to just square things up and stuff like that. But no lawyers, no bills, right? And that's also like something I want to preach, right, for people that are listening that like are starting companies. Dude, don't spend. Don't waste your time raising money unless it's like for survival. Like if you need to raise like 100K to be able to pay yourself for like a year or whatever, or like whatever it is, or like 200K for two people, whatever it is. Yes, sure. But like the idea to raise like millions of dollars before product market fit, just a waste of time for everyone. Because also investors, they should be skeptical now of people wanting to raise without product market fit, or at least the product that's out there with customers, because it's so easy to build. It's like, what would you raise before? Capital is needed once you try to scale something that works. Yeah, then like capital is still needed because there's to build something that scales, you need it would be irresponsible to not use cheap capital to grow, right? To grow faster and to make sure you have a dominant position. But before product market fit, which is, by the way, most companies are pre-product market fit, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes you think you have product market fit, but you don't have product market fit. And being very honest with yourself as a founder is so important, because if you lie to yourself, think I have product market fit, but it's like you don't have product market fit. It's not because you have like 100 users that you have product market fit. Product market fit is like you'll know. It's like product market fit is like when people break your server breaks because there's too much demand. Like that's product market fit. Even I think Polsia, I think have product market fit. Even though I'm very critical with everything, there's still question marks about retention, long-term retention, about how many businesses can make meaningful money. Can I have a company do 10K a month on Polsia? Well, not yet, but I think it's possible. It's not crypto. It's not like a get rich quick scheme. It's like you build a real business online. It takes time to build a thing that works, right? So it depends on like the violence of product market fit. It's like, is it like a Google product market fit, or is it like a cursor product market fit, or is it a lovable product market fit? Like we'll know soon. I hope it's a Google one. I think it's a Google one, but we'll see. But
Ben, thank you
regardless,
very much. Yeah, I think we are starting to run out of time. I want to just go quick through a quick fire round. So what is the most underrated use case right now?
I think the most underrated AI use case is use cases that people think are not possible. Like I think pushing the edge of AI is what I would recommend. So for example, like if you're like, oh, but like an AI cannot do sales calls, I'm like, try it. Or an AI could never close an enterprise deal. I'm like, well, try it, because if you figure out that it can, how much money have you saved? How much more efficient? You're gonna win so hard. So that would be my advice.
What is one thing that AI sucks at doing at Polsia right now?
What does it suck at doing? I think it
So good
sucks
at
at telling
everything,
me. I think it sucks at being honest
probably the
when
physical world.
it sucks at I think AI sucks at not telling you I don't know when it doesn't know, or or not saying I'm not sure when it's not sure. And oftentimes it tells you, okay, this is the answer, and you're like, are you sure? I'm like, actually, I'm not sure. Let me check. I'm like, what do you mean? I thought you were AGI. What do you mean you don't know?
If you had to hire one human employee tomorrow, what would be their job? The
Good
title
question.
job. Yeah, job
That's a
title.
good question. I think. I think infrastructure, head of infrastructure engineering, I think would be. Vibe coding gets you this far in terms of product, but when it comes to infrastructure, to make sure that like things scale, you kind of need specialized talents that I guess could do it, but like you taking too much risk.
One wild prediction for AI startup ecosystem in the next 12 months.
1% successful companies like Polsia becomes the norm. There will be like thousands of successful one-person companies. That's my hot take.
Ben, thank you very much. It's been really exciting. I hope to build another one of these really successful one-person companies. Sounds really exciting. I mean, it's really exciting. The other side is that I also love to collaborate with people a lot into, maybe in the creative process. I will work on a super efficient small team company that really excites me. This is my aim, or my personal. But I think what you're doing is incredible. So Ben, thank you very much, and hopefully we can catch up in the maybe 6-12 months. See if your prediction is.
Sounds good. Great to see you, Michael. That was fun.
Thank you.
All
Ciao,
right.
Ben.